Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm SocietySucks and today I'm checking out the strange history of birds trying to mate with us by Casual Geographic. Apparently that's a thing. Birds trying to mate with humans. Kind of weird, however there's probably also plenty of examples of humans trying to do weird stuff with animals, so who's worse, humans or the birds? Probably humans. Anyway, let's just watch the video.
How does this keep happening? All you did was go bird watching with your friends to hopefully learn more about the world around
And suddenly
you. Instead,
you're trying
all you've
to...
learned is that life, not unlike this
you're being
bird,
assaulted
comes
by
at
a
you
bird.
fast. That's how you end up with an aggressive cock on your back. And yes, that is this Chernobyl pigeon's other name. He's not the only victim. There's an uncomfortably extensive history of birds of every feather trying to make two beasts with one back together, with humans. Including the biggest birds currently walking the earth. The rabbit hole of illicit avian liaisons goes way deeper than even I was expecting, and if I had a nickel for every time a bird tried to make a man his wife, that amounts to more sense than a man that just sits there and lets it happen. What you're gonna learn is the chance a down bad dinosaur tries to force you to crash cloaca is low, but it's far from zero. But sometimes it's not the bird's fault. Parrots are a lot like us. They're highly intelligent, they can talk, and they have erogenous zones just like humans. Think of the 7 scene from Friends. The problem is, if you pet them the wrong way, they will feel some type of way. It's been said that you should...
Okay, so if you accidentally stimulate them, they'll try to screw you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's most of the time it's probably the human's fault. Alright then.
Should only ever pet your parrot above the neck. The beak, the cheeks, the top of the head are all okay. The wings, the back, the belly, and the chest should be avoided since those are spots only their mate in the wild would touch. Not only can touching them turn you into your parrot's mate in their eyes, you can also trigger hormonal imbalances along with behavioral issues like biting, screaming, feather plucking, excessive self-service, and even self-mutilation. In fact, in some cockatoos, it can even cause cloaca prolapse. Don't Google that. It goes beyond just leading a bird on. Starting its engine with no destination can be a blight on their health. In the words of Deadpool, they're about 80% G-spot, and they will let you know about it. And if it's not by hip thrusting your head, it's in the form of regurgitating in your ear to show their affection. In this case, it's not the bird's fault. In fact, there was one creator who went out of her way to repeatedly touch up her parrot because she thought it was funny. The whole time she was getting molested with an overachieving reptile. But there is one parrot that needs absolute...
Honestly, if she was aware that that can cause the bird to, you know, get horny, I feel like that should count as animal abuse. Or at least something similar. Because she's doing it on purpose. So if she knows, that's definitely not okay. If she wasn't aware, which I'm assuming she was here, but if she wasn't, then that's fine.
Absolutely no help getting excited by humans. And you think
though, to be fair, if you're getting any animal, you should do research on it.
Evolution. The kakapo is an indictment against all birds. It's a kiwi muppet with wings too short to soar and body too fat for flight, and they're a keel and the breastbone shy being able to fly. The kakapo also regularly forgets that they forgot how to fly, with researchers witnessing startled kakapos run up a tree and jump, only to remember gravity and faceplant on the ground. They also only breed once every 2 to 3 summers, and mothers have been known to accidentally crush eggs in the process. Safe to say that underachieving avocado chicken has nothing positive going for it. Or at least they did, until humans introduced unnatural predators to their homeland. The result is that today, there's currently 240 green dodos alive and living in a few tightly controlled islands of New Zealand. But the big issue with being on nature's no-flight list is how kakapos even find a mate. The answer is the male will dig a bowl-shaped depression in the ground and make deep, booming, amorous advertisements.
Oh, that's
the good news is these calls can travel up to 3 miles away. Bad news is they gotta make these booming booty calls 8 hours a day, every day, for up to 4 months straight. And worse, like all dating apps, sometimes...
What? 4 months? Wouldn't that just attract predators? That's like the worst thing. These birds got the finger from God.
All they attract is a predator. So as you can guess, a lot of kakapos end up mateless and dateless. And with a Kermit-colored bowling ball living for up to nearly a century, that is a lot of romantic buildup. So much that scientists have witnessed them try to make interspecies spanky to a seabird, a fallen tree branch, and even an extra curvy piece of driftwood. And there's another problem. In 1997, one kakapo was born in the bird sanctuary on Codfish Island, but was hand-raised by humans after nearly dying to a sickness at 3 weeks old. The parrot would survive, but would imprint on humans and show zero interest in his own kind. In fact, he would only direct his booming invitations to humans. This made him...
Well, see, here's the thing. If that bird was gonna die anyway due to a sickness, but now that he was saved by humans, he's no longer interested in his own kind, then it I mean, it's really the same result, but at least this way the bird is still alive.
A poor breeding parrot, but an excellent ambassador for his endangered peers, and in 2009, zoologist Mark Carradine would visit Codfish Island to help shed some light on the species. In response, Sirocco the kakapo would proceed to violently mate with the back of Mark's head, a moment that immortalized both of them. Yes, that's where the shagged by a rare parrot clip came from, and Mark wasn't the only one. You see, Sirocco was a certified goon. He would even set up shop by an outhouse, so any human looking to relieve themselves would be chased by the feather felon looking to do the same, to the point where they had to put a fence around the loo. If Sirocco was anything, it was persistent, and scientists tried to take advantage of his preference with that. That is a bucket hat. Lose the B and add an F, and it's designed to capture Sirocco's liquid daycare to use to help further the kakapo population. The problem is, where most birds only need a few seconds to get their rocks off, kakapo coitus can infamously last an hour. So, it didn't work. Sirocco barely cooperated, and the helmet now resides in a New Zealand museum. But kakapo numbers are on the rise, Sirocco's still alive and well, and Mark will surely never wear green around Pepe Le Parrot again. But that wasn't the first time a sensually explicit hat was used to save a species. Which is ironic, because parrots are also the closest relative of the falcon. And in the 70s, the peregrine falcon nearly got wiped out in America thanks to the widespread use of the infamous pesticide DDT. This chemical would thin the eggshells of the falcon, making them brittle enough to break when the parents would sit on them. The peregrine population would nearly flatline from about 4,000 breeding pairs down to only 324.
I mean, yeah, the side effects of pesticides and other stuff like that.
Had an idea. Human-raised falcons also become imprinted on humans, often with familiar consequences.
I feel like most animals which are raised by humans can imprint on humans.
So he came up with a bucket hat designed to collect the falcon's fetal broth for breeding purposes. But it wasn't as simple as just putting on a hat. There's a process. First, you have to wear the exact same clothes, including the hat, every time the falcon sees you, so it can get used to your outfit. Then you'd really have to get in your bag by mimicking the female falcon's vocalizations and even bobbing and bowing your upper body like a she-bird would. You'll know the falcon's catching feelings when he starts doing ledge displays and delivering food to you, which, of course, you have to accept. Eventually, time comes to collect, and that involves a male falcon flying past your head multiple times until eventually landing on your hat and proceeding to make love to your headwear. But there is no one and done. You'd have to repeat the falcon fornication process 2 to 3 times a day for up to 3 months straight. And remember, falcons are monogamous, so you're committing to a lifetime of skull bashing. Boyd's work wouldn't go wasted, as today, there's over 3,000 pairs of breeding peregrines in America, and most wild falcons in the US are descended from those captive, potentially hat-humping birds of prey. And you can thank the dedication of those falcon enthusiasts, so hats off to them, figuratively. But it wouldn't have been possible without the bird's proclivity for getting the hots for humans. In fact,
he looks so uncomfortable.
In 2002, a study found that chickens might have the same preference for human faces as we do.
Oh god, the eyes are changed. That's why it looks so weird.
Hens to respond to the average human male face, and did the same for 2 roosters, except with the average female face. They did it by taking 35 male faces and merging them to create the average male face, and again, but for females, and then they would show these chickens these faces on a screen, and the hens would be rewarded with food only for pecking on the male face, and the same with roosters, but for female faces. They did this until the chickens could get it right 3 out of 4 times. Then the test actually started. This time they used 7 faces, the average male face here, and the average female face here, and they combined those 2 faces to create the average human, along with 2 faces with exaggerated female traits here, and 2 exaggerated male faces here, meaning the faces would get more feminine as you move to the right. Then they would show one of the 7 faces to the chickens at random, but this time they recorded how many pecks each face got. Think of it as like a poultry approval rating. At the same time, they took 14 college students and had them rate those same faces on a scale from 1 to 10. By taking the human ratings and the chicken pecks, they found that the humans and chickens had virtually identical answers. Meaning, the faces that the humans found the most attractive with no training were the ones that got the biggest reception from the chickens. But while it's interesting, it doesn't exactly prove that chickens want to bone people. But one study proved exactly that for the biggest birds on Earth. In the early 90s, a study was done to explain why ostrich farms in the UK were producing less eggs. Even though farmers—
Wait, what? There's ostriches in the UK? I guess there is.
—swore the dino birds displayed courtship behavior every time they checked. Well, it turned out the ostriches were more attracted to people, and in the study published by British Poultry Science, 70% of the birds in one farm had displayed to humans. That display resembles an aroused Looney Tune, and it means the Jurassic drumstick wants to deliver 10 honest inches of ostrich sausage. In fact, it was believed the male spent so much time trying to solicit another species that it led to them being rejected by their own. And even if they didn't, it was proven that the ostriches got more frisky when there was a human around to watch.
No
Some
way.
even had preferences. Some preferred men, some women, and for some, just being a person with a pulse makes you their type. I'd like to add that male ostriches can be up to 9 feet
Some will just appreciate anything, anybody.
tall and weigh 300 pounds with life-canceling claws. So that's more than workplace harassment. That is a death threat. It's even a threat to the ostriches, because according to Dr. Charles Paxton, the more they yearned for humans, the less they knew what to do with their own kind. And
Yeah,
one man
that's definitely
really broke
dangerous
his
for
leg
the
trying to top a female
species.
the wrong way. And that's not the only rat tat on record trying to ravish a human. With emus, you get the same problem. With human hand raising, believe
Aren't emus and ostriches almost the same thing? I know they're not, but I'm assuming they're closely related.
to leave emus liable to assault a person. One man, Des Fallon, even learned how to attract emus by laying on his back, pedaling an invisible bicycle, and sounding like a half-expired cat. Somehow that brings all the birds to the yard, and yes, it's proven to work. Some say it mimics an injured animal and piques their curiosity, but some men have nearly been emusculated in that same position. Either way, this method seems to work on 8 out of 9 emus. Buddy in the back wasn't having it. But there might be another explanation, one that could be a personal problem for me. There's another theory that says emus are attracted to blacks and blues, and it's because when emus are romantically open for business, the skin below their eyes and on their necks turn a bright blue. Also, the males are the
So basically, don't wear anything black or blue when you're around an emu, and you should be fine.
prize, because in emu culture, the females court the guys. Well, my favorite color is blue, and I wear black every day of my life, if you know what I mean. So it's possible the combination could make me look like a receptive female, which could be a problem since emus will make moves on humans even if they already have a mate. So while it's rare, the chances an amorous
Or a
Australian
backpack.
outback turkey turns you out isn't zero. Speaking of turkey, I was once told by a hunter friend that you never want to wear bright colors like red, white, or blue, and I thought it was because you might get the attention of a gobbler. Turns out it's so you don't accidentally get Pat Tillman by a fellow hunter. But turkeys are also on morally questionable timing. Martin Sheen and Edgar Hall of Penn State conducted an experiment where they took a taxidermied female turkey to see how many features they could remove before the males rejected it. Well, they removed the tail, the feet, the wings, all until there was just a disembodied head. That didn't stop them. And it turns out the gobblers preferred a bodiless head over a headless body, and it's believed it's because the head is the only thing the male sees.
So it's the
after they
head that
mount a
attracts
female.
them.
Literally because their fat, pudgy body blocks the rest. So basically, no head is a no-go. But the whole bird attraction thing might just be a matter of visual cues. The penguin is a great example, and another bird with highly questionable mating behavior. So much that Dr. George Levick's studies from spending an entire breeding cycle around Delhi penguins was vaulted for nearly a century for how traumatizing the things he witnessed were. But on a wholesome note, it's believed that because penguins
It's just penguins, how could this be bad?
have no natural land predators, they're not only fearless around humans, they see us as bigger, awkward penguins. And it's half true, they have to worry about aerial assaults from skuas and petrels, and in the water they're a leopard seal luncheon. Now this doesn't apply to all penguins, the Antarctica waddlers are definitely bolder from living in a freeze-dried desert, but it's very possible for penguins to form attachments to humans. Like this famous video of Cookie the blue penguin cuddling up to people and laughing while doing it. It's adorable.
It is.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to do this to you. That penguin is 100% trying to mate with that man's hand.
Oh my god, why do you have to ruin it? Why not just pretend it's just trying to hug him? Why do you have to make it weird? Come on.
Couple seconds and it would have been cookies and cream. So a penguin excited to see you is most likely trying to get one off on you. And if you don't believe that, penguins have been recorded making love to the ground. To completion. But this is all lust. The question is, can a bird fall in love with a human? I don't know. But one came close. This is the white-naped crane of Mongolia and Northeast.
I mean, how could anybody possibly know that? It's a bird. It's not like it can tell you that it loves you. Not with words, at least. But then how are you supposed to guess based on their actions? Is a bird even capable of love?
China, but thanks to the loss of their wetlands, they're one of the rarest cranes in the world, with only a couple thousand left in the 90s. Luckily, Chris Crow and his wife Walnut would become a beacon to the crane cause, except Walnut was actually a white-naped herself, and her story reads like a screenplay. Walnut was born in 1981 as part of the International Crane Foundation, a foundation where humans help raise crane chicks for the wild to help boost the population. Walnut would provide a negative contribution to the census, as by age 23, she had no children and had allegedly murked 2 males, with 2 suitors found with their bellies sliced open by claws. Allegedly.
What?
The theory is, some crane chicks wake up choosing siblicide and try to kill each other and have to be removed and separated, and it's believed that this was the case with Walnut, and all that isolation around just humans meant she imprinted on humans. But there's also
And she didn't see her own kind as, well, her own kind anymore, I guess. Yeah, that is the danger of keeping animals with humans and not with their own species.
also meant that Walnut would be condemned to live a life alone, with no chance at ever having children. Well, that was until the crane met a crow. Chris Crow had worked with California Condor and Wolf reintroduction programs, but in 2003, he landed in Patuxent, where his job was to raise the world's rarest crane, the whooping crane. But the whooping crane work was only seasonal, so when he was eventually offered a full-time crane keeping position at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute, he took it. And his first avian assignment was a genetically valuable crane that was born in Wisconsin, transferred to Denver, then Cincinnati, and finally in 2004, the Smithsonian. That's when Chris Crow met a crane named Walnut. Like a true tsundere, Walnut gave Crow zero love, growling at him and flashing territorial displays at him like a full-body middle finger. But Crow also noticed that Walnut would go out of her way to ignore attention from other males, so Crow had an idea. That summer, he would perform a crane courtship dance around Walnut, and not only did she eventually fold and give in, she would initiate a classic crane love duet, which Chris would add to when
I feel like that's just even worse because now, like, yeah, she's actually responding, but it's to a human. I doubt this is going to translate and work on a male of this bird species. So I feel like this is just causing even more damage. Although I suppose at this point it doesn't really matter because it's not like she was ever gonna mate with a male of her own species.
no one was around. Crow would take it further by hand-delivering nest material to Walnut the way her mate in the wild would, and eventually, Walnut got comfortable enough with Chris to allow him to touch her. At one point, Walnut appeared to invite Crow to mate with her. With Walnut fully seeing Crow as her mans, Chris would go through all the motions of crane mating, except he'd artificially inseminate her with the seed of another crane. Normally, the process would involve multiple people holding
Never mind, so I guess it did bring some results.
the bird down. Just a stressful time for everyone. But with Walnut fully committed to Chris, it couldn't be easier. And a commitment it was. Crow would go on to work with other cranes who would eventually get paired up with cranes of their own.
Well, would you look at that?
She was his. And cranes can live for 60 plus years, and losing a mate can be physically and mentally damaging, so Chris knew he was in it for the long haul. Even when Walnut was no longer part of the breeding program, Chris would still dance with her and would even help her incubate her unfertilized eggs. Walnut would pass away January 2nd, 2024 at the age of 42, leaving behind 8 children, and of course Chris. She didn't just contribute children, her story brought eyes to the plight of the white-naped crane, who today number in the mid-6,000s. But none will ever be as special to Chris than the one named Walnut. And on that note, that's gonna do it for this video. Drink water, hug your mother, don't get inappropriate with your parrot, and I'ma see y'all in the next one.
What is that? Is that a penguin? It is.
Everybody around here's got one.
Look at him. He's cool. He's chill. He's not trying to hump him.
Stealing goldfish and, you're a real nuisance, eh?
Yeah, I always kind of wanted to get a bird. A parrot, to be specific. But now I'm not so sure anymore. Seems like a bad idea. Yeah, the history of birds trying to mate with humans is definitely very complex and kind of weird. A lot of it is also caused just by humans. They're the instigator. But yeah, as can be seen with that last story with the crane, it actually can bring results sometimes. And I mean, I think I've said everything I wanted to during the video, so I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you want to see more reactions, check out this video right here, and with that, I'll see you in the next video.